iconic Hollywood actor Michael Madsen has died at age 67. He was found unresponsive at his home in Malibu, California this afternoon.
He was the face of Hollywood's most dangerous men, the voice behind cinema's sharpest one-liners and the soul of cult classics that defined a generation. But now, Michael Madsen is gone, found unresponsive in his Malibu home at age 67, leaving behind a legacy of grit, regret, and untold brilliance. Fans were left stunned.
According to his publicist, he suffered from cardiac arrest. Madsen was best known for his work in Tarantino films like Reservoir Dogs, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and the Kill Bill film.
But what happened in the final hours was only the beginning of a story more complex than anyone realized. Early Thursday morning, a call to emergency services led deputies to his Los Angeles County home. They confirmed no foul play was suspected, and yet his passing sent shockwaves through the industry. This wasn't a man whose career had faded into the shadows, far from it. In fact, in the last 2 years, Michael Madsen was making a quiet but powerful return through independent cinema, starring in projects like Resurrection Road Concessions and Cookbook for Southern Housewives. He wasn't slowing down, he was stepping up. He was ready for a new chapter, one that would have shown a side of him many had never seen. Behind the scenes, he was also preparing to publish a deeply personal book titled Tears for My Father, Outlaw Thoughts and Poems, a raw collection that pulled back the curtain on the man behind the myth. Fans had no idea this tough guy had such a poetic voice. And just when he seemed to be reconciling with his past and shaping a new future, everything stopped. But Madsen's legacy had already been sealed in film long before. For over 4 decades, Michael Madsen carved a niche in Hollywood that few could touch. He was unpredictable, magnetic, and darkly charismatic, but it was one collaboration that truly defined him. His connection with Quentin Tarantino launched him into cult icon status, playing the unforgettable Mr. Blonde in Reservoir Dogs. Madsen delivered one of the most menacing performances in modern cinema. His dancing torture scene remains etched in film history. But here's the twist: he originally wanted the role of Mr. Pink, the part that would have placed him directly opposite his hero Harvey Keitel. Instead, the role went to Steve Buscemi, a move Madsen accepted but quietly wished had gone differently. His chemistry with Tarantino was undeniable, and the duo teamed up again for Kill Bill, The Hateful Eight, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Madsen was one of Tarantino's muses, the kind of actor who could embody chaos and calm in the same breath. And yet, even with this loyalty from one of Hollywood's most celebrated directors, Madsen's career often veered in unexpected directions. Behind closed doors, he faced a pattern that haunted him, missed chances, roles that slipped through his fingers, the biggest of them all: Natural Born Killers and LA Confidential. Both projects where he was strongly considered, but ultimately passed over in a rare moment of vulnerability. Madsen spoke to The Guardian in 2004, revealing his frustration with being overlooked by certain filmmakers. He said it wasn't just about the roles, it was about the feeling that Hollywood had moved on without him, despite his contributions, despite his talent. And yet, even with the setbacks, he kept going, he kept creating. Madsen never chased the spotlight. He embodied it in films like Donnie, Brasco, The Doors, Species, Sin City, and even Free Willy. He proved he wasn't just the go-to guy for villains, he had range and he wasn't afraid to show it, even appearing in the offbeat Scary Movie 4, a reminder that he never took himself too seriously. But what was going on behind the scenes was far more complex than any of his characters. There was a side of Michael Madsen that most fans never saw. There was a side of Michael Madsen that most fans never saw, a side filled with poetry, pain and reflection beneath the gravel voice and cold stare. Was a man who wrestled with the weight of his past and the silence of his own thoughts. His upcoming book, Tears for My Father, wasn't just a creative project, it was a window into his soul. In those poems, he wrote about regret, about broken bonds, about family and fatherhood, themes that rarely surfaced in interviews, but lived in his writing. This book wasn't his first brush with vulnerability, but it was shaping up to be his most honest work yet. And fans who only knew him as the razor-sharp Mr. Blonde were about to see a completely different side. But now that book will be published posthumously, a final whisper from a man who spent his life shouting through cinema in metaphors and monologues. The poetry didn't just express loss, it also hinted at something deeper, something unresolved. Madsen had battled disappointment from roles that escaped him to people in the industry who turned their backs. He never hid his frustrations, but he rarely let them define him. Still, it's clear those wounds never fully healed, even as his fans cheered every gritty comeback. When news of his passing broke, Hollywood responded not with headlines or hashtags, but with a quiet kind of mourning. Michael Madsen was never the celebrity plastered on every magazine cover, but he was the actor whose scenes you never forgot. Even when the credits rolled, his absence isn't loud. It's haunting, like the echo of a closing door in an empty room. No major memorials have been announced yet, and that silence might feel fitting for a man who gave everything to the screen and asked for so little in return. It's easy to remember Madsen for the tough guy roles, for the violence, the stare, the unpredictability. But that's only half the story. He was also a father, a writer, a man who loved fiercely and failed quietly, someone who believed in second chances even when the world had moved on. He wasn't just playing outlaws, he was one chasing peace in a town that rarely offers it. Looking back on his career, one thing becomes clear. Michael Madsen didn't need the Hollywood machine to become legendary. He did it through raw presence, raw talent, and a refusal to be boxed in by what others thought he should be. He turned down the polish, chose the edge, and lived like one of his characters. Always a little on the outside, always looking in. And maybe that's what makes his legacy so powerful. He didn't play by the rules, he played by instinct, and now his final performance is unfolding not on screen, but in how we remember him. The man, the myth, the misunderstood genius. In the end, Michael Madsen wasn't just a Hollywood tough guy. He was something rarer, an original, a storyteller, a storm. And even in silence, he left behind a voice that will echo for generations to come. But Michael Madsen's story doesn't just end with his death. It continues in questions left unanswered, in the emotional fragments he left behind, in interviews and unfinished work. Some close to him say he had been reflecting more than ever in recent months, talking about family distance and things he wished he could have done differently, especially regarding his children and personal life. Rumors suggest he had been quietly trying to rebuild some of those relationships behind the scenes, while pouring his energy into independent films, and poetry fans have speculated that the themes in his book, Tears for My Father, might have been more autobiographical than even he admitted. Whispers from the industry hint at a man who still felt like an outsider even after 4 decades in the game. And that feeling of being overlooked never really left him. Despite starring in nearly 350 films, despite creating some of the most iconic scenes in cinema history, Michael Madsen never received the mainstream recognition many believe he deserved. Maybe it was because he never played the Hollywood game. Maybe it was because he always refused to be what others wanted him to be, and that refusal cost him, but it also made him unforgettable. Even in his final roles, there was a rawness, a quiet power that made you stop and listen, because you knew there was truth behind the eyes. Whether he was holding a gun or delivering a single line, he made you believe it, because he lived it, and that's something you can't fake, not even in Hollywood. And now fans are returning to his old interviews, reading between the lines, watching Reservoir Dogs and Kill Bill with fresh eyes, asking themselves how much of Mr. Blonde was just a character and how much was the real Madsen, the charm, the danger, the sadness. It's all there if you know where to look, and maybe that's what made him so captivating. He wasn't trying to be liked, he was trying to be real. In many ways, Michael Madsen embodied what Hollywood pretends to sell, but rarely delivers authenticity. He was messy, unfiltered, brilliant, and broken, and he wore that on screen like a second skin. There are actors who chase fame, and there are those who chase truth. Madsen was the latter. His life wasn't perfect, and neither was his career, but both were undeniably his. And now the silence he leaves behind is louder than any line he ever delivered. Fans are creating tributes, sharing scenes, quoting lines that once felt cool, but now feel timeless because they came from someone who lived it. So what's left of Michael Madsen is more than just a list of roles. It's a blueprint for how to stay true to yourself in a world that wants you to be someone else. And for all the roles he didn't get, all the awards he didn't win, he still achieved something far greater. He became unforgettable. Because in the end, it won't be about who got the bigger role or the shinier trophy. It'll be about who left something real behind. And Michael Madsen left behind fire, heartbreak, poetry, and power. And that might just be the most legendary role of all.